Hey, it's me, Bloo Rhapsody, version 3, back from the void. So let's get started. Before I talk about Twin Snakes, I have a deep dark confession to make to you all. Over the past year, I've started playing Final Fantasy XIV. It certainly has been an experience. It's hard for me to fully describe how I feel about the game. At times, it's one of the funnest MMOs I've ever played, and others, it's a boring fucking shit! Generally, I'm not a huge fan of MMOs, and my only experiences are with Wizard 101 and Toontown when I was like 10. So compared to those, Final Fantasy XIV is way more mechanically interactive. My experience with the game pretty much is as goes. Mechanically and story-wise boring, but a necessary setup for the stories to come. It really only picked up in the final patches. I absolutely love the story and setting, especially after the fucking nothingness that was A Realm Reborn. But also on another note, give me those eyes of Nignog. This expansion's pretty great up until you get to the Al Amigo part. Lee single-handedly brings down the entire story with how fucking annoying she is. Luckily, Suru kind of evens it out, making Stormblood a very middling expansion story-wise for me. In terms of gameplay, the dungeons and raids of Stormblood are the best so far. With the strike of a light bulb, I just air it out and leave with the mic, bro. The world and story that was created for Shadowbringers is such a breath of fresh air for Final Fantasy XIV. It is by far in a league of its own compared to the other expansions. Removed from the stupid a la Migger and Garla Snake nothingness, Shadowbringers is able to do its own thing while tying together loose plot points from previous expansions flawlessly. This is peak Final Fantasy XIV for me. Here's a brief poem to describe how I feel about Endwalker. Vena is my wife, and this expansion makes me want to take my fucking life. Thank you. I haven't played Dawntrail yet, but I'll get back to you next year. This review is in response to a dastardly video made on this very channel, a video by the name of Metal Gear Solid vs. the Twin Snakes Pros and Cons. Sonic Bolt, which, can I be honest, is a stupid name. Bloo Rhapsody is much better. Implies that Metal Gear Solid on the PS1 is a better game, which is objectively wrong and objectively a gay take. I'm going to take down this piece of shit video point by point, and hopefully by the end you'll agree that the Twin Snakes was Kojima's true vision for the game, realized in all aspects. If you think otherwise, you're probably a cum-drinking troglodyte or something worse, like a Guilty Gear fan. While on Whippets, lead programmer of the Twin Snakes, David Lynch, said this regarding the two games.
You'll think that you've experienced it, but you'll be cheated. It's such a sadness that you think that you played Metal Gear Solid on your fucking PS1. Get real.
And he's right. Honestly, you should be buried in several feet of cement if you disagree with that. So, in conclusion, this Sonic Bolt guy sucks. I'm not really too sure who he is or what's his fucking problem. Look, all I'm trying to say is that if this guy puts me in a self-defense situation, I wouldn't hesitate to unleash my poignant criticism about his shitty video. Hey Sonic Bolt, if that's your real name, I got 4 words for you. Go fuck yourself. Do you like gambling? What about high-stakes, unsanctioned gambling? Would you trade away your life savings to feel that buzz? Why stop at money? Trade your kids, trade your organs, trade whatever it takes to give into that vicious urge to gamble it all away. That's Rance 5D, no credit card required.
Hype up the motherfucking beat, cause we're gonna do it like this. As we get serious, on the mic, yeah, we're gonna feel it, a little like this. As I say these funky rhymes, I want you to feel the time, cause we wanna get down.
Continuing on my trend of reviewing eroge every year on this channel, my newest installment is Rance 5D. Don't know what Rance is? Here's a brief overview. Rance is an extremely long-running eroge series made by the glorious Alisoft. The Rance series is a parody of the fantasy genre, drenched in black comedy. Rance himself is a twisted version of what a fantasy protagonist should be. He's self-serving and generally doesn't care about anything that isn't money or sex, mainly sex. Due to how the universe operates as a video game, and Rance's previous adventures, he's strong enough to generally take whatever he wants. Rance is a borderline force of nature. As such, the plot usually revolves around people in power barely directing them at each other with promises of sex. While Rance himself can be pretty funny, he's generally a dork and retarded. The main draw of this series, to me at least, is the writing and world building. Think of it like the One Piece of porn games, but with a lot more. So getting back to Rance 5D, it's barely a video game. Think of it more like a slot machine where the mob isn't going to beat you to death because you owe them money mixed with a point-and-click adventure. For the most part, the point-and-click stuff is pretty basic. You walk around, you talk to people, and there's puzzle solving. Outside of that, there's generally only 3 things you have control over: choosing your equipment, visual novel choices, and rolling them slots, baby. Everything else is either automated and or completely random. Battles, events, and whatnot are just out of your control. The game is divided into 5 chapters. The goal of each chapter is to hit certain story beats before you run out of time shown at the top of the screen. There's a second timer on the top left. This timer will count from 1 to 5 with every action you do. Even minute ones like going to the equipment screen or talking to people will add 1 to it. Every time it rolls over, you'll lose 1 tick of time. This style of gameplay is pretty frustrating at times when RNG isn't on your side. Luckily, the game has checkpoints in every chapter, so if something isn't going your way, resetting isn't that bad. While there is a main story, each run of 5D can be completely different. The game is pretty short too, so sometimes it's better to restart the game to obtain more items and skills rather than brute forcing a bad save. Plus, here's a pro tip. The skip text button at the top of the window will speed up everything, including battles and checks. The game is also not above letting you soft lock yourself, or sometimes just giving you an instant game over. Other times, you can just give away a key item and be fucked 3 chapters from now. Thankfully, in these instances, the game will at least tell you after the fact, but it still involves restarting.
I said, baby, I don't care what you say. I just looked at you and I just wanna pass you on by.
No joke, you're gonna be staring at this until something interesting happens. You have a few choices on how the roulettes actually work, but it's still random regardless. That is what I'd say if I wasn't a big baller, but in reality, just like finding the most STD-free hooker, it can be gamed. In the roulette screen, there are 3 types of rolls you can do. You have 1, 3, and 5. These determine how many orbs you can choose when the spinner stops. The 3 and the 5 rolls to most people would seem like the best ones since you can choose what you're doing. But the caveat is they use up more of your actions and time for essentially the same outcome as a single roll. Generally though, single rolls will give you the most benefits. If you roll 3 of the same colored orbs in a row, you'll get a giant match 3 bonus. Another bonus is that every orb you hit will turn into a green event orb, giving you more chances to progress before time runs out. Usually, I use the multi-rolls early to stock up on items and grind XP, then when I reach around half the amount of time I have left, I start using single rolls for big bonuses and to clear the board. Speaking about XP, I fully recommend battling as much as possible. I beat the game at around level 29, so shoot for around 5 levels or more per chapter for Syl and Rance. The Rance series has always had really funny writing, and this game is no exception. The team at Manga Gamer did a great job on this like always. Genuinely, it is the best part of the game. To keep things short and sweet, Rance and Syl are adventuring like usual to try to get back home from the events of Rance 4.2. When suddenly, after going through a cave, they wind up in an old Japanese castle completely separate from anywhere they know. Will they escape before time runs out? I mean, like, yeah, there's like 5 other mainline Rance games. Did I mention the music? It's mostly alright this time around. Outside of 3 tracks, there isn't much that stands out. Just like Pachinko, this is the type of game that you want to excessively drink and smoke while playing. It really wouldn't fit the vibe if you didn't. It's really only fun if you don't take it too seriously and are drunk enough to deal with the restarting. Rance 5D is all the highs and the lows a shitty casino can have. Win big and be a big baller, or lose it all and say goodbye to your kidneys. That's up to Lady Luck. But I wouldn't necessarily call it fun unless you're a Rance fan, or really like slot machine gameplay, since I really don't play the game for any of the For these games, the gameplay and writing is primarily what I'm interested in. While this game does have great moment-to-moment writing, the plot itself is very inconsequential to the mainline Rance series, outside of introducing 2 new mainstay characters. Unless you really need to experience this part of Rance's story, I would just skip this game. Once you get past the pseudo-roguelike gimmick, most of the gameplay is just as shallow as a real slot machine is, and can be played as such. Blacked out drunk, ashing a Cuban cigar on the carpet with nothing to lose. I'd personally recommend other Rance games first, but it's still a fun vibe if you know what you're getting into. Sort of. Anyway, thanks for having me on again. Check me out on my channel, Bloo Rhapsody. I may or may not post videos if I feel like it. Goodbye, till next year, friends.